Okay, Jessica, keep it together. You got this. Hi, Justice League. I didn't touch it. I mean, I was going to touch it, but I didn't touch it, so it isn't my fault. And everyone is looking at me, and I should shut up now. Listen carefully, because I'm about to open a nice, refreshingly cold bottle of Pepsi Zero Sugar. So this time, listen for the taste. Here it comes. Oh yeah, we're a close-knit family. But we all have different styles.
Yeah.
That's why we shop at Ashley Home Store, where there are styles for all of us. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know what I was going to do. Planned Parenthood gave me all the information I needed, and completely free.
Oh, this is a big moment. I have a song ready. This is for you, little baby girl, whatever your name is. To spell cat, you just have to remember yellow 74, blue 2286, and of course seafoam green 63 and a half.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikki, and I'm a crew trainer here at Applebee's. I've put together a short video to show you a few important things that will make your first day a success. Let's start with customer service. What's a tech junkie doing at American Express? The coolest stuff I can think of. It's more like a hybrid than a financial services company. It's one part commerce and one part digital science, blended together to create tools and innovations the world has never seen before. Led by an exceptional faculty committed to the educational development of the next generation of world-class opera singers, Juilliard's Marcus Institute for Vocal Arts prepares students for the challenges and rewards of professional
Good people, welcome back to another episode of Take Time Out with Tre Mosley, and I am your host, Tre Mosley. The young lady before you on your screen. Wow, what can I say? There are people in this industry who are busy, and then there's Cristina. You know, you don't understand how long and hard and arduous it was to get this young lady on here. But persistence, friends.
That is the name of the game.
That's the name of the game. And here she is. I did it.
Just shows why you are such a phenomenal voice actor.
You know the credits. You know the resume. I ain't even got to get into all that. But I got her.
Thank you so much for having me on. I know I don't do a lot of interviews. I don't. And it's not you. It is like it is everybody. My life has been absolute insanity for the last several years, for multiple reasons, not just voiceover reasons. So thank you for your patience.
No, it's all
you're
good.
awesome, and I'd love to come chat with you. Like and you're a friend, so it's like that would have been fun to do regardless. So thank you for your patience.
No, it is absolutely my pleasure, and I'm sure the folks that are watching, it's like, oh shoot, you got it. Because I have been telling people I'm trying to get her on the show. I'm trying. They're like, why don't you ask Christine? I'm like, what do you think I'm doing? And truth be told, I had a short list of people that I wanted to have as my first guest, and you were like in that list, and I'm like, they said no. They said no. She hasn't responded. They said no. I'm like, maybe we're not gonna do a podcast.
No, you should absolutely have a podcast. So I'm very excited to finally be. How long you been going now?
This is a year and 50 something episodes later.
Wow.
Here we are. So
bravo.
Yeah, it's been great, man. Just talking to different folks that are in our industry. We've had casting and booth directors on here. We have I had one series called the Legends series where I talked to Dave Fenoy, Bob Bergen, Joan Baker. I had Chris Anthony Lansdowne. Like I try to throw in
everybody. Yeah, nice.
I try to mix it in because doing this type of work. Yeah, exactly. For as long as we have, and you longer than I have, you tend to forget about the folks who was doing it before we began. And I felt that I needed to, as the saying goes now, give them their flowers while they're here. And, have them, Joe Cipriano as well, and have those folks come on and talk about, how they got into this business and, trends that they may have seen over the years and things like that. So it was really cool to have them on. But
That's a
that's
beautiful
them.
saying. That's a beautiful saying, by the way.
Oh yeah, it is.
I
It
love
is.
that.
Um,
I've never heard that before. That's really
yeah.
nice.
So this episode sponsored by my cat.
My
Um,
cat will make an appearance, I'm sure, as
this
well.
is the beauty of unscripted television, even though not television, but look, you can stay, but you have to chill. You know how long it took me to get her on here? You're not gonna muck it up.
I
So
ain't going nowhere,
so
so
relax. So I've known her what 10 plus years already.
yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while. And
First met you at View Atlanta, I think.
that is correct. Well, that's the first time we met in person.
Yes.
Um I have seen this young lady grow. Um, you know, she's been through some things. And I remember that via Atlanta specifically because of one particular instance, but we'll get to that later. So, what I like to do, uh, we like to go to what I call the before. So, yes, we know about you, the darling that you are now. But let's go back, California. You know, she is a Raiders fan, by the way.
Oh,
That's not
yeah.
that
Mm.
we don't have much to cheer about, but that's another way
I
we
was gonna say, we're
connect.
not gonna talk about this season.
Yeah,
My other team is the Bills because I am in upstate New York now, and my son, who is about to be 5.
already? Are you serious?
Yes,
Wow.
he is enormous, and he is a major Bills fan, and he is obsessed. So I know more about the Bills now than I know about the Raiders, and it's just because my son it's a deep, profound love. It is sincerely profound, and, like, his grandmother took him to a Bills game, and
Oh,
that and it was like yeah, again, it was, like, something that I'm sure impacted him on a
I'm
level he will
sure.
never forget for the rest of his life, and yeah, it's, all we talk about,
Well,
and
it's okay because my allegiances are split. Um, growing up in Miami, you kind of have to be a Dolphins fan.
Oh, yeah.
So but how I became a Raiders fan, it all started with Marcus Allen in the Super Bowl against the then Redskins, and I'm like, I want to be like him.
Mm.
So I just fell into the tradition and the lore of the Raiders, and I love them. I just don't like them right now.
Well, maybe if they kept not leaving Oakland, then just
I don't
saying.
even think it's that. It's just that's another podcast for another time.
I'm from Oakland
I
originally,
know,
so
I
I
know.
gotta,
Yeah. You
anyway.
know, I blame Oakland Alameda County for not ponying up to 20 million. They didn't
I
want to
don't
do
think
it.
that was it. Was that it?
I mean, it was a pretty substantial amount, and they said
Oh.
no. And
I
so
thought it was just because like, people didn't wanna be associated with Oakland or something.
no, 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 no.
Oh, really? That makes me feel
Yeah,
better.
it's always about money. It was a
I was
money
like,
thing.
"What's wrong with us? The
That's why
Warriors
the
left
A's
us
are
to
leaving
go."
too, because Oakland Alameda is cheap. My
Of
nephew was
course.
born in Alameda County Hospital.
Oh,
So I again, we'll
alright.
we'll discuss
Okay,
that
I'm
off.
sorry, that's just
Yeah.
a whole other we went on a tangent, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's okay. See, y'all don't that's why my studio is silver and black. It was Raider theme. I'm like, I'm in Vegas, I'm with the team, and we just haven't been able to.
It's
I
alright.
digress.
It's alright.
So again, she's a Cali girl growing up. Um, and I like to ask this question a lot because I think it's interesting to see what avenues brought people into voiceover. Some folks have been on in front of a camera on a stage as soon as they learn how to walk and talk. Was it like that for you?
Actually, yes, my parents are musicians,
Okay.
eh, and, definitely grew up with the whole, like, starving artist thing, and we were poor. It was definitely like, they could not afford babysitting much, and so, all of their gigs, all of their they would go out, play at clubs or weddings or funerals or whatever it is, majority of them, I went with them, and, so I think probably starting when I was, like, about age 2, they would just be like they'd bring me on stage and they'd be like, "Here, kid, just hold this maraca. Just shake it like this." All right.
Wow.
And I was like, "Okay," because, like, I was there, like, they and so I couldn't be up there the whole time,
Sure.
so, but I to this day can fall asleep anywhere with any amount of noise because I got used to being up until unless I wanted to be up till 2 or 3 in the morning, I would just fall asleep in the back of the club or the back of wherever, or in my home where they're having a band, a practice,
Right. Yeah. Having
and it's just, like,
rehearsal.
trumpets blaring until all hours, and yeah, so I got used to it. So, yeah, I definitely it was a performing family. My father plays, Peruvian music, like folkloric traditional,
Oh, okay.
Peruvian
Cool.
music.
Yeah.
I'm half Peruvian, and my mother grew up in Mexico, and she, sings, like, mariachi and, all kinds of and they also both did opera when I was little.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so some of my earliest memories are opera houses.
Huh.
And now my mother has a PhD in voice and my dad has a master's in voice.
Wow.
Yeah, vocal nerds all the way. Vocal nerds all the way. Yep. And so, I'd just be like singing around the house, whatever. My mom would be like, "Drop your jaw. Feel
So
the space."
my choir
You know?
director always round your vowels.
Right.
You'll
And
drop.
like I sounded like this when I was little, so like she's like trying to get me to like open it up, She's like,
And we like
Right.
and I'm like, "Mom, this is what I sound like. I'm sorry." So I got my dad's voice. My dad's a tenor. Uh
Okay.
Very, very, high pitched, and so, and his bone structure and everything, but yeah, so it definitely is from a very young age, was part of their shows just because I was there, and, tried to get out of it when I was like 12, 13. I was like, "Can I not, please? Like, I don't want like
Like
like"
I'm kind of over it now.
Yeah, they'd perform for, like, my school, my elementary school. I'm like, "Oh god."
Oh, wow. You know,
Like, "Oh god, please make it stop."
it's something about parents coming to your school that is the most anxiety driven. You just, even if it's for something good, it's like, why are you guys here?
It
Like,
was hard.
really? And then your parents performed at the school. So I don't know what kind of anxiety that may have given you because
It
now they're like, isn't that your dad up there?
And they're no, and they made me go up. So I had to
Oh
perform with
my.
them, and it was the whole, your family," that was the whole I was like, "Oh god." Playing my whatever they gave me, I don't remember. I play, like, 6 instruments poorly.
Uh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so it's just yeah, because they would just like there were so many instruments in the house. So, like, I play piano, I play that pretty well. I can play, like, the flute, I can play the saxophone, I can play a trap set, like, decently. I can hold, like, a tuba
Really?
set. Yeah, I can hold, I can play a cajon, which is a Peruvian instrument. I can play the panpipes. Um I can play like I don't remember what those things are called. All kinds of random like accompany things. So like
Yeah.
you give me like some maracas, like one of those things. What are they called? A weedle, a weedle, like all these random
The
Hispanic.
little
Yeah,
yeah,
like you need to. Yep, I can play that. Yep.
I'm
So
just saying this VO thing doesn't work out. You could easily make some coins as like, yeah, I'm a session performer and I'm on my way to studio now because I got a gig. That's pretty dope, man. I don't think a lot of people knew that not only well versed with spoken word, but you you do a little something with the instruments. That is really
yeah.
cool.
Three-part harmony was a game, that was like, we'd play in the car, like, that was fun. And I think I composed my first song when I was 9, which was in one of my mom's albums. Um,
Wow.
I write poetry, and my dad writes poetry and lyrics. It's like a family tradition on my father's side, and so we
That's
would
pretty
write
cool.
music, and yeah, it was cool. So that was sort of my intro to the performing arts.
Mhm.
And when I was, I think it was 8 or 9, um, my mother had gotten an agent, because, she's bilingual and she very little, no accent in English or Spanish, and so she actually got a voiceover agent, and was
Okay.
trying to do voiceover as part of, adding to the, list of different things that, income.
Mhm.
And so she was going on auditions, and I was just with her, you know? So that was one of the ways that I got into voiceover. There was a couple of ways. That was the one of them, and, she went in for an audition, and they came out and they said, "Actually, we were looking for a kid. Does your daughter wanna try?" I was just in the waiting room, And my mom asked if I wanted to try, and I went in and I auditioned and I booked the job, and that was for Ned Lott, who went on to do
Wow.
Disney character voices and Miyazaki, and he was one of the first people who ever cast me in anything. That was Ned
That's
Lott, and that's
crazy.
yeah. So that was great, and he hadn't done any of that yet. Like, he was, he was, trying to remember the company he was at that time. I think it was Computer Curriculum or the Learning Company. It was the Learning Company. That's what it was. We did a Reader Rabbit series, and so that was my first job, and it was like a $3,000 job, and I was like 9 or
Ah,
something, and I didn't even know, like, I didn't know what was going on, but that was one of the first things I did. And then my mom would also, she had a whole kind of little career, a mini career in kids music, like Latin American kids music.
okay.
And so she made some albums that, all these cute little, like, uno, dos, tres, like teaching, like, Spanish, and cuatro, cinco, seis, like all these,
Okay.
teaching Spanish basics to kids. And
Sure.
some of them won some awards and stuff. Actually, they did very well. And she brought in a little kids chorus to record for the album. And so I was brought in to be part of her little kids chorus of
Of
kids just
course. Yeah.
shouting and singing. And I guess at a couple of those sessions, uh, some of the engineers were like, "Hey, who's that one?" And she was like, "Oh, that's my daughter." And they started bringing me in for voiceover that way as well. So uh, that's how it began. And that those jobs came for. There's a lot of work up in the Bay Area for toys and video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up working for a company called the Music Annex back in the day, and that was Charles Albert, who later went on to found the company called Creativity. And I worked for him all through lower school, middle school, high school, and college, and
Jeez.
that was all toy work. So that was really my first work, was educational and toy work. So that was all the, can you find the blue square? Great job.
That is
Yeah.
crazy. You know, I think by far, um, that is the most interesting, what's the word? Use your words, Trey. Um, Introduction into voiceover that I have heard on this podcast. I mean,
Really?
yeah, Bob Bergen talks about how, he found Dawes Butler's number in the phone book because you could do that, back then. Sorry, Bob, back in the day. Um,
Oh, me too.
but to go from, you know, sitting in on sessions with your parents, which in itself, that could be a whole nother conversation, you know, like it's 3 a.m. I'm 2 years old sitting there going,
Oh, yeah.
that is crazy. But to
Yeah.
but to
I
see
learned
that,
how to do a sound check when I was, like, 10.
see,
Like, yeah.
that's wild.
I
That
learned how
is
to wind
so,
cable, like all.
you were a roadie
Oh,
as a
yeah.
teenager.
Oh, yeah. No, that's like when I was, like, 7.
Yeah, tape those cables over there. They're not tight
Mhm.
enough.
Absolutely. Yep.
Christina,
Absolutely.
come on. Shake
Pack up.
it, mama. We gotta go.
That's right. You pack up, you get there, 2 hours early or an hour, and then 2 hours later, and it's always the guy with the trap set that's got the biggest job, and you're like, "Oh,
Of
dude, I'm so
course.
sorry you picked that instrument, man." Um, like, it's so much setup, but yeah, no, you're right, I was a roadie.
That is so cool.
And
That is wow. And like I said, because I've heard so many different ways of how folks have kind of, you know, were either steered or directed into it, but it 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 just felt or it seemed like a natural progression. Um, because most VO, maybe there's a small little pocket. Most of them have been singers in the
mm,
past or been around music. I sang too, and I think for us, because we can hear the notes when we speak, so it's there's a fluidity to it. It comes natural.
absolutely.
Um, and I've always said that, and they used to say, "Well, don't sound too sing-songy." You can't tell a musician not to be sing-songy because that's all they know. But I understand what they meant, but it's like, that maybe might not be the best way to describe what you're hearing. So you from a young lady, And you said through college, you had this company that you were doing stuff for.
Yeah.
So by that point, even though you were doing it, did you feel like this was something that was going to be your forever job? Or was just like, hey, I can get a couple of dollars. I'm 16, 17 years old, probably making way more than my friends at Burger King are making. So I'm like, this is not too bad. Did you see it as something you could do long term?
It never occurred to me that I would do it full time as a job ever. Not until college. I had a couple of odd jobs when in my teenage years, and voiceover, it just never occurred to me that it would be like a job.
Hmm.
I don't know. It was just one of those things where it was just something I did, and they would call me in, and I'd just go. And the other thing was I never auditioned. So I got really spoiled because they would just bring me in for jobs. And when I like
Yeah.
later in life, when I was like had to audition, I was like, this is hard. Um, like so, you know, it was a very specific skill set that
Hmm.
made that, because I sing and I speak 2 languages, English and Spanish. That was the golden skill set for toys and educational content.
Oh, I'm
A-
sure.
and so I was very fortunate. They would literally just bring me in for jobs. I didn't audition ever. And I didn't do a single voiceover audition. Well, I mean, I probably did like some when I was there in the studio, like, can you read for this too? And
Hmm.
like something like that. But I didn't do like an audition through an agent until my 20s. Um, you know, and uh it didn't it was since it was never presented to me as like this is a career.
Hmm.
uh I it I actually just didn't I never thought about it. I never thought of it as like a something that people did for a living. It never even occurred. I don't know why it never occurred to me. Maybe because my parents, we never discussed it. It was just
Yeah.
like, and that was one of the things, and one of the reasons why I later wanted to found GVAA was because I had so little career guidance early in my life. And if I had had some sort of mentor, some sort of anybody who had been like, hey, kid, you know,
Been there. Yeah.
it would have been such a different trajectory. And I think I would have been doing animation much sooner and some of these other things. And it's fine. Like, it's, there's a lot of skills that I gathered along the way.
Yeah.
But that it's not the kind of thing that has a very clear pathway. It has so much. There's so much to it that's like you learn here and there, and it's more organized now. But before it was also just, and again, this was before the internet. It was very difficult to figure out an educational pathway, and
Hmm.
it was not in the colleges. And
Yeah.
so when I went to college, I did not want to do anything artistic because I'd seen how much my parents struggled. And so I was like, I'm going to study statistics and business.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. It's what I did. I literally went to the School of Management at BU, and I studied statistics for a year as well. And then I was like, okay, this isn't really me. And then I ended up switching over to something more artistic. But while I was in Boston, because I was away from all of my voiceover contacts, which I
Yeah.
didn't realize that I had been relying on financially a little bit until I left. I had to get another job, and I worked at Starbucks and Jamba Juice and like the convenience store. And I was like getting, making $7 an hour.
Yeah.
People were mean. It was
Hmm.
cold. And I was like, this is hard. And I got a full scholarship to BU and to NYU, and I couldn't go to NYU because I didn't cover housing. So I went to, which broke my heart because I really wanted to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I went to BU, and but it didn't cover books, and my parents really didn't have any money. And I remember my parents couldn't, in my second year, like they told me that my couldn't they couldn't pay for books, and I
Right.
couldn't make enough money making $7 an hour to cover my basic stuff. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. I can't keep going. I can't afford my books. So I left, and I went back home. I went back to California, and I got a job at Creativity, which was an audio production slash recording studio
Hmm.
for toys and games. And I worked there so I could make a decent income. And then eventually I applied to UC Berkeley, and I did another year there uh, to try to finish school. But it was, that was my first realization of like, oh, I have a skill set. This is a job.
Hey now.
I had no idea. Like, it just never occurred to me. And that's why when I called back, I was like, hey, you guys got any voiceover work? And they're like, "Do you wanna work here?" And I was like, "Doing what?" Like, I mean, I voiceover, obviously, and they're like, "Oh, yeah," and they're like, maybe you can answer phones." And I was like, "Great." So, they just wanted basically, they wanted an in-house voice actor,
Yeah.
and, and that was so rad. I was an in-house voice actor, basically, and we worked out an arrangement where I was paid a flat fee per week
Nice.
to record as much voiceover as they wanted.
Oh.
Mm. You can see a little the rate guide, the
Yeah.
mhm, of a whole history here, and again, there are toys that I saw that I did when I was, like, 11 that I saw for a decade after, that I got paid, like, $150 for.
Oh, cut it out.
Yeah,
Mm.
so I have felt the rate guide in my heart. There was so many reasons, and there were other reasons later,
Yeah.
but I had been burned so many times in the non-union world because everything I did was non-union growing up, that was another reason why I did, want to create the rate guide. But anyway, that is, so I worked at this wonderful company. I love them, creativity. I've known Charlie Albert, the owner, and Sally Albert since I was, like, 8 or 9 years old, and they were just wonderful people. And again, I was, 20. I didn't know anything, like, about anything,
Yeah.
and God bless them. They're like, "Okay, we'll have you answer phones." And so I started with just answering phones, and we worked out a flat rate per week, and it was glorious because, even though it was a flat rate per week, I got to try everything.
Yeah.
I got to try everything, and then I got to see behind the curtain of, like, the casting process.
Mhm.
I learned how to record. I learned how to engineer. I learned how to then I started participating in the talent coordination process.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to scheduling sessions, and then, they helped me, I started doing, like, talent coordinating stuff, and so I got to see the other side of things, and so not only was I getting to push my range, because again, if I booked it, then that was great for everybody, and then I got to not answer phones, I got to go do voiceover instead,
Yeah.
which was awesome, and so it was just this huge win-win, and then I had, like, a 401k when I was 21, and it was, and
Amen.
it was phenomenal, and it was one of the best, experiences of my life. I just adore them. They were so patient with me because I was just like I came from this, very I don't know what the word is, but again, very just artisty upbringing that was very loosey goosey. There was no structure to it. It wasn't like a 9 to 5, like be here. Then it was like, oh, I show up when I show up, or
Yeah.
I mean, like it was very, being accountable to like a team, being like that. There was no team in the art. Like everyone was soloists. Like it
Yeah.
was not like a. So they were just wonderful. I learned so much when I was there. I learned so much about the voiceover world and the casting process and production, that I have used later. It was truly like the best education I could have
I
ever
mean,
asked.
it's literally, I remember when I was in high school, they had this thing called OJT, which was on the job training,
Mm,
and it really wasn't. But that if the poster girl for on the job training, because like you said, you're answering phones, you're doing VO, and now they're saying, hey, this is how you edit this is how you cut that, and you are soaking all this up. No scholarship anywhere, no training anywhere would have given you the
yeah.
insight that you were able to get if you didn't work at this production company.
1,000%. It was such a gift, and I got to, and everyone was so kind, and they were all musicians. A lot of the audio, production, they're all
Yeah.
musicians, and I learned really cool stuff, like that you can edit on an S, and things like that, or an F, or just these kind of tricks that really in editing does matter, for your auditions, and so. Oh, and I got to do demo vocals, which was also really cool,
Oh, that's
and
sweet.
yeah, it was a big part of the job there was, that we would create, some of the skill sets in terms of, like, my pre-life before animation was that toys and games, for those who don't know the work, there's a lot of sound alikes and there's a lot of singing, and so you're doing sound alikes for these big characters that are animation usually,
Hmm.
So you have to be as good as the final, or at least pretty close to the final, and so I learned voice matching. I learned vocal manipulation because I was trying to match these characters,
Yeah.
and then the demo vocals, the company created, and would compose songs for the toy products, and so during that revision process, while they figured out the final song, they would have me do the demo vocals until the final artist was hired when the song was done.
Gotcha.
And so that was great because I also learned how to I memorize music very quickly. They'd be like, "Here's a song, you got to sing it now." So I just sit there and just have to sit there and you listen and listen and listen and over and over and over until you learn the song and you go in and
Yeah.
do it. And so that was an amazing skill set to have. I know that if someone is like, "Oh, by the way, you're going to sing a song," I'm like, "Okay, let's go." And it won't take me that long. But yeah, that's exactly it. It was on the job training, and it was truly phenomenal. I actually did end up going to UC Berkeley, and I enrolled in the theater program,
Nice.
and I did not like it.
Oh,
And the reason why was because again, uh, some of the required courses were like, theater, I remember I was sitting there hanging studio lights, like lights in the theater, and I was like, it was a requirement, and I
wow.
was like, I am never going to use this ever, and I haven't. I know that was true. I knew that there was never gonna be a time where I was gonna need that skill of, like, learning how to hang a light at the top of a theater, like, that was
No.
never going to happen. I already knew what I wanted to do. I didn't realize that I had this amazing thing that I could do, and I loved it, and, I wanted to be studying linguistics and accents and, engineering, all that stuff, and
Yeah.
so I actually ended up, leaving after my 3rd year, and I just kept working at the recording studio. So that was my education, was that amazing place, and just grateful to them to this day. So
What's cool about that is, and I know for many of us, the the proposed plan growing up is you make good marks in school, then you can go to college, and from there you find your career path. That never really sat well with me, because why do I have to wait till I go to college to know what I want to do? What if I already have an inkling of something and I go, I'm kind of good at this thing. Yes, I'm 18, 19, 20 years old. And maybe whatever fill in the blank university isn't really providing that for me. But here's some people that I work with every day. They are allowing me to not only learn what they do, but it gives me an opportunity to use this newly found skill set, and damn it, I'm pretty good. So I get to do this with them, do this for me, make a couple of bucks as well. It's like school. What is school? This is school. This, it's like you're everything you needed to know or to have was right in front of you. Um,
yeah, I mean,
and
there's something to be said for, especially in the arts,
yeah,
or a craft where there was an apprenticeship back in the day. You
yes,
were a sculptor, there was an apprentice. You were, a woodworker, you became an apprentice. Even now, like, you're tattooing even, you become an apprentice. You work in the shop, you learn how to do that craft. There's no substitute for that. And my ex and I would talk about this all the time because he's an artist, and I remember talking with my dad when I did make the decision to stop going to UC Berkeley because my mother was very upset. Like her whole side comes from like all Ivy League, like
oh yeah,
Stanford, Princeton, Yale, everybody, and I'm like the black sheep that like didn't fit.
they're doing this at you,
No, they
wagging the
never
finger.
did, but my mom was like, and my dad was like, Christina, he was like, you're an artist. He was like, at the end of the day, if you're an artist, nobody's going to care about that piece of paper you're waving around.
Amen.
It's whether or not you can do the art. And if you can't do the art, that piece of paper's not going to matter anyway. It won't matter.
Yeah.
It's you. And we had a really great conversation. Obviously, there are certain things that you can and can't do. Like you can't go and be a tenured professor teaching voiceover in a college. There are certain avenues that are not available to you, but can you go and perform? Can you go and do the craft? Can you go and and I'm very proud to say that I have now participated in multiple university programs where I get to go and teach, including one that's coming up. And
Hey, now.
I'm gonna get emotional. Sorry.
No, no, it's okay.
But it was, when that happened, the first time it happened, I called my daddy and I was like, Daddy. And it was part of why I started GVAA is because, like, when I went to college, there was no voiceover.
Yeah.
I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I would have done it if it was there,
Mhm.
and it wasn't. And, or if I had even had a career counselor or someone who had even explained to me, "Oh, by the way, voiceover is acting." No one even literally connected the two for me. I didn't even know that until, like, my 20s. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh." Like, to me, it was always, like, vocal gymnastics. It was, like, singing and weird voices. I didn't occur to me that I was acting, you know?
It's true. You know, when I was a kid, um, me and my buddies would get our boombox and we would do what people now know as radio plays, but we would like so I'm a big collector of well, men do not call our toys toys. We have action figures.
Right.
So we would take our action figures and we would pretty much just hit record. And now, you know, since I just had Captain America, I'm like, haha, I'm Captain America. And I'm doing these voices, not knowing where they're coming from. But when you see it on the cartoons, you emulate what you see and hear on the cartoons. And we would just have fun. Um, you know, little did I know that decades later that I would be doing this for a living. You know, it's crazy how things that we don't necessarily uh pay attention to, because when you're young you don't really think about that. When you're 8, 9, 10 years old, you're just having fun with your friends. Maybe in your teens and your 20s you like, okay, I'm kind of good at this thing, but what am I going to do with it? And like you said, even when I got into it now 16 years ago, I didn't have any mentors. You know, YouTube University was my friend. And I had to go
Yeah.
online and realize that the person who was, you know, Sandy the Snail also did a 2-hour documentary. And I'm like, how? He doesn't sound oh. And like you said, it's acting.
Yeah.
And had I known that what I was doing was acting, and yes, you're putting on a voice, or yes, you have to sound one of the words that they use is you have to have a certain gravitas. Yeah,
Mm.
all of that
Well,
type of thing. But you're becoming someone that I don't wake up just like, hi, good morning. No, I don't do that. But if
I'm sorry. I try to keep it together, but I think because I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum, those low, deep, I'm like gravitas is like my biggest enemy. Like that's on the specs. I'm like, oh crap. Like that, like they want me to be gravitasy. Great. You know, and I work. I'm trying, but those low, deep voices, like that whole thing. Oh, it's so cool. It's just so cool. It sounds so cool. I wish I could do that. It's just awesome.
you know, I have to thank puberty for clocking in at the right time.
Yeah.
Um, remember that day I was 12 going into 13 and I woke up like this. And then I answered the phone and went, hello. And my aunt was like, who? I'm looking for my sister. I'm like, it's me, auntie. No, it's not. Because my nephew is a little boy. Not anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
But
beautiful. It's
you
such a
know,
beautiful
we didn't have those mentors to right our ship and say, hey, if this is something you really want to do, here are the steps. We had to, again, using the on the job training reference, we had to learn the thing. You know, one of the people that kind of helped me indirectly, my uncle was a TV news director for one of the local stations in Miami.
Mhm.
And prior to that, he was a musician in the band. He was a radio DJ. So I learned about audio visual from him, you know, knowing how to cut audio to video,
Cool.
learning about white balance so you can get the right colors in video so is not where it's too grainy or like it's too much light and is oversaturated. So a lot of those things, and I didn't realize it until one day I was working on a project, and this is years ago, and I'm like, why do I remember this? And it hit me, you know, spending time with him at the station and watching him, you know, and learning how to speak on cue.
Oh, yeah.
Because with him being the director, he's like, okay, cue camera this, cue this, go so and so, and then they do it. So all of those things, you know, 40 something years later, I'm like, I had no idea that it was setting me up for what I'm doing now. And I want to hop on this since we are talking about, you know, not having the tools, so to speak. Um, you have given many in this industry such a great tool, the GVAA. And not just the rate guide, which is important because trust me, to this day, I will still go in there and like, look, let me see what the good old rate guy got to say about it.
I use it
And
too.
so,
I'm like, "Oh, I'm glad I made this."
yeah,
I don't
talk about how um important it was to not only do this, but what was the catalyst behind, you know what, we don't have anything like this out here. Let me start an organization that I feel can help other actors in this industry, with the things that you guys do.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and there were multiple things that happened that led me to that decision, and one of them I already shared with you, which was my frustration getting to college and not having what I wanted to study, and I was, you know, I had, scholarships. I was an AP student, I had a 3.9 GPA, like, I did very
Oh,
well in school,
Monty
and
Pants.
yeah, I did well, but the thing I wanted to study was not, I got into NYU, UC Berkeley, these are great schools, but what I wanted to study was not available.
Right.
And that was very frustrating, and, so my cat, sorry, you can hear her,
He just popped up too. Like, what are you guys doing?
okay, I think it's Cata, whatever, but yeah, so that was part of it, um, and then, I taught my first class ever at a voiceover school called One Voice sorry, not One Voice, sorry, Voice One. Sorry, I always get confused with the conference and the Voice One, which was started by Elaine Clark, who is a
Oh,
huge
okay.
voiceover hero to me because she was very much like a pioneer in the field. And
Sure.
she invited me to teach a class on toys and games because she knew I did the casting and the talent coordination for creativity. And so I taught my first class, and I had never taught a class before. And I had a blast. I loved it. Oh my god, it was so much fun. I just had a good time. And afterwards, we talked, and she said, "Christina," she was like, "You're a good teacher." And I was like, "Thank you." Cool. I'm glad because I didn't know. I did my first time, and she was like, "No," she was like, "Some actors really can't coach." And she was like, "And some actors can."
Yeah.
And even if they're very good, some of them just can't coach. And she was like, "No," she was like, "You should come back next year." And I was like, "Okay, great."
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, so that was like my first uh, intro into coaching and discovering that I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And that's how I met David Rosenthal. Is he
The
was a coach.
ageless David
I
Rosenthal.
know, I
How does
know.
he do it?
And the women just chase him around. It's a good thing he's got a girlfriend now, but like I have to
Oh,
like beat them off. Like I'm like, just leave the poor man alone.
he's a strapping fellow of a certain age, but Dave's good. He's good people.
Oh, he's amazing. And so that's how I met him, and he was a coach there as well. I did an interview for something he had. A coaching actually it was the predecessor to GVAA when it was called Internet Voice Coach, and it was something he had started, which he also had this vision of trying to reach people via the internet, so that it didn't matter where you were located. You didn't have to only attend these like workshops in LA, or in these major centers. A way to reach people who were, if they couldn't travel, or they're in the middle of nowhere, or
Yeah.
maybe they didn't have the resources or the money or whatever. He wanted to make that available. And so um the reason I started GBA, there was a very specific thing that happened, that I had met all these wonderful coaches. I had been exposed to all of these just wonderful experts who were just phenomenal. And then I was doing some private coaching here and there, and I coached a gentleman who came to me and said, I don't understand why I'm not booking. Can you help me? And I took a listen to his, he had like 3 demos or 2 or 3 demos. I can't remember. I think it was 3, to be honest, on a beautiful website. And I told him, well, I think the fact that you have a speech impediment is probably
Mm.
not, it's probably, lowering your booking rate for the commercial narration. And I will never forget the silence on the other end of the line. And he was like,
Oh,
I have a speech impediment?
he didn't know.
No. No one had told him. And they had made him, he had paid like $5,000, and this was in 2012.
Oh, man.
He had paid $5,000 to have these demos made in a website by an organization, which I will not say who it is.
Mhm.
I actually don't even remember who it is, to be honest. And no one had told him that he had a speech, something in his speech. And now I would just like to say I had a speech impediment when I was younger, and that's something that I had to work on. I had one in English and Spanish. Um, and it's also not uncommon for people who are bilingual because there's certain sounds that are,
Yes.
carry over, and it's something I had to work on. Um, a speech impediment is not the end of the world. You can totally fix that. There is speech therapy. You put in the time, you can fix that. That is not gonna kill or make or break your career. And
Sure.
there's character work that you can do. I was working in education and toys with a heavy speech impediment. Totally fine because I was cute and it wasn't like, a commercial or narration and I was a kid. But I did notice that my booking commercial was not very high when I got
Hmm.
into my 20s, and it was because I still had the speech impediment. So I had to work on that. And that's why also I didn't feel weird about telling him because I had done it. I had worked through that, and it's not the end of the world. But if a coaching organization does not tell you, if a coach doesn't tell you, they're doing you this huge disservice, and you're spending all this money on something that you're going to have to redo at some point. And if it had been my student, I would never have made it a demo yet. I would have said, "Hey, let's work on your speech impediment first, or
Yeah.
let's focus on character work. In the meantime, while you work on it, before you drop, $1,000, $2,000 on a demo." Um, because again, if you're only going after commercial narration, which is what he was doing, you are not going to book as much as someone who doesn't have that.
Correct.
And I told him, and I was like, "This is not the end of the world. It can be worked on." And he was so devastated. Like, he was devastated, and we hung up, and I never heard from him again. It broke his heart,
Oh
and I
man.
was I was livid. I was livid, and I was like, "This is so wrong. Like, this is so wrong that there are these places and these coaches and these organizations that are just like, 'Hey, you can be a voice actor in a weekend, and we'll make your demo, and we'll do the
Yeah.
thing,' and it's such a disservice to, at least be honest with your students. You can be kind. There are ways to be loving and kind and encouraging, no matter what's going on, but honesty, integrity, that was so important. And so, and I was like, I'm going to start this school with great coaches because I know great coaches, people who are never going to lie to their students, and I want to be able to reach people who are anywhere, not in LA where you know the latest, you know who to trust.
Hmm.
I wanted to create an organization where people could come and know that they were safe. Um, and so I started it. I reached out to Elaine, as she was one of my first coaches. I hired another coach from there as well. And then David, that's when he called me and he said, "I heard what you're doing." And he said, "My dream is your dream. Let's do it together."
Nice.
And I was like, "Great." Because I was like 28. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a kid. Kid with a dream. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never started a company.
Most of us are. Most of us are kids with a dream.
I didn't have any idea, like, how to run a company or whatever, and it was, and, he's, quite a lot older than I am, and I desperately needed that guidance. I had no idea what I was doing whatsoever. I was learning, and then there was a point too where, like, I was kinda running things, and then he was like, "Christina," he was like, "I love you. You're a great person, but I need to be CEO. You can't do this." and
Yes.
and it was hard and it hurt, but he was right, because I didn't have the experience. I didn't have the, he had so much more experience, at that time, and maturity and all kinds of things, and regardless, I still had a whole kind of career that I wanted to have, and this kind of conflicted in a way. I mean, they're both pull on your time.
Sure.
And so he was like, "Christina," he was like, you know, like, "You should be in here, teach your classes, we'll do this together, like, on the stuff." He was like, "But I'll run it. That way you can also work on your career at the same time." And he was just phenomenal. He's just been and he's been a huge mentor to me. I look up to him so much, and I feel so grateful, because he really just, without him and without my team, again, Sean Daly, David Toback, they've been with us literally 9 years, like, within a year of us starting the organization, like, they were there, and they have been here with us the whole time. Like, our team has been together for 10 years pretty much,
Wow.
almost,
It's
like,
my
all of
guys, man. Sean and Dave, good people.
Yeah, nobody left. Like we all, and it was just like a family. And it was because we believed in this dream of making sure quality voiceover education with integrity so that people could really build their businesses, with knowing that like this is actually real information. We are not going to just tell you whatever. Like this is what it's actually going to take to build a business because this is not an easy industry.
No, ma'am.
It's so hard. And so that was the beginning. And I'm so grateful to them because I had a whole journey to go on with my own voiceover career and personally, and without David, without Toback, without Sean, this organization would not be here. And they're the backbone of everything. And I love them so much. They're such good people. So
They really, really are. Having had the pleasure to know and meet all three of them. Actually, Toback and I are Florida guys, so we have that in common as well. But yeah, the GVAA continues to be one of the pillars in this industry to not help just only folks that are up and coming, but like I told you, I've been in it now 15, 16 years. I still go to the rate guide, and I'm a union, but still it's like, let me see. Just you got to be sure.
well, there's
Now,
certain areas the union doesn't cover as well,
correct.
and you don't have that info. So it's like there it has to be somewhere. And I'm very excited to say we have now formed a GVA rate guide board.
Okay, talk
Very
about it.
excited. Yeah, so I just, because I'm super excited about it because again, it's grown so much. And obviously there's so many people that, they're like, we need this area. We need this area. This needs to be changed. And, this whole time it's just been me and Toback. And we're just two people. We're like, this is a lot. And in the beginning when we put it together, it was just hours and hours of talking with experts, and just trying to put this together. But it became so much bigger. So we were like, we need a board at this point to weigh in on these decisions on like what goes on there when we change something. We need to make sure, and so and again, I won't say who they are, but I'm so honored and I'm so excited by this board. I do hope that we'll be able to share them publicly. We may not be. We're going to ask them, if we can share their names. But these are
Yeah,
some of the top people in the country in terms of casting directors, agents, managers, the people who are seeing and production companies, because we wanted to incorporate a wide range, people who see all types of jobs, union and non-union, what is really going on out there, and how do you negotiate it, again, with integrity that's fair to the voice actor but also realistic. How do we walk that line because
sure.
so much is shifting, because if things are so radically like idealistic on the rate guide, that also doesn't serve people because they need to know what it is. But we also want to uphold a certain, here's a range that's respectable, that you don't want to go below this. And people are going to do whatever they do. It's a guide. It's a jumping off point for
Yeah.
negotiations. But these are difficult decisions, especially with things shifting so much. And so we wanted to have the top experts from across the country, and I'm so excited. Every single person we asked said yes, and we have such a great mix of people. And so we will be starting all of our meetings this year and going, section by section through the rate guide, revising, adding, updating, and I could not be more thrilled. I'm so excited.
Oh, that's super cool, man. I think, you know, when you get folks on board, that lets you know that they appreciate the work and they see the vision and they're willing to add their input to it. It can only, make the endeavor that much more better. So congrats to you guys, man, for making this happen. And can't wait to see what you're gonna do.
It's gonna be, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but I know it's gonna be awesome. So I can't wait. So yeah.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Um, so I want to talk to you about a thing. Um, is that Kitty?
I'm sorry.
I,
Yeah, do you want to come up here? Yeah, you can. It's okay. It's
yes, we are
okay.
pet friendly.
Come
Smokey
here.
is sound asleep now,
I've
but
also been told she has an excellent meow. Two different engineers have told me. They're like, "Can you record her? She's pretty good." I'm like, they're like,
I
"She's
have
a great
about
meow."
a 45-second loop of him purring
Oh.
because when in my old studio, I had the he stepped on the keyboard and hit the space bar, and it started recording, and I just hear him. He just because he's trying to get the foam off the 416, so it's just like you hear scratching. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, "Rah," like, up, busted. And I went and played it back. I'm like, yeah, so I got you now as a sample. So
That's awesome.
I remember us meeting so many moons ago, and I want to talk about perseverance.
Hmm.
I remember your accident,
Hmm.
and I know how hard it was for you to go through the therapy. And I remember us chatting, and I said, when I see you, I'm going to give you a big hug. He's like, not too big though, because I'm still recouping. I'm like, I got you. And I remember us finally seeing each other and giving you that hug. And there was some guy playing some music, and you started dancing, and you were crying as you were dancing.
Hmm.
You remember that?
I do, actually, I think. Was it
So
with Joe? Was it, I'd say, dancing with?
it may, you know what? It may have been. It may have been.
I
And
love to dance.
I never forgot that. So I wanted you to talk about, because people see like I said, the after, all the good things that happen to us in this industry. But I think the more people that will come out and say, hey, it's not all rainbows and kittens, that there are some things, there are going to be some times where it's like, am I making the right decision? Uh, Talk about times where things may not have been as peachy, and what you did to kind of right yourself and get back to doing what you do best.
Yeah, that is a whole, there's a lot there. So, um, beyond my accident, actually, and, I knew at some point I would talk about this, and I didn't know when I would, and I won't go into, like, super depth about it, but, at some point, maybe later too, I'll go full in depth about it, but, I have not had an easy life. And certainly easier than some. There's people in parts of the world that are just it's devastating.
Yeah.
But I had trauma from childhood, CPTSD, and that's something that I've dealt with my whole life, and that's been, an ongoing thing that I've always had to work on, and that's been difficult. But so there's always been that. Uh, and I have anxiety. I have some like all that kind of stuff that kind of goes along with trauma. And so that's always been a part of my life. But I will say that again, that also, and when I work with my students, when we talk about career strategy and things, there's so many things that they might seem like a vulnerability or a weakness or something that is not helpful, but they are actually a strength in so many ways, because it gives you an experience that other actors do not have, that you can speak to truthfully. And my spinal injury was the same. It was absolutely awful. It was a traumatic experience for a number of reasons that were personal, of where I was and who it happened with.
Sure.
Which I also won't do because that's like a whole other another hour-long program. But, uh, my rehab took about 7 years, and, there was a point, and the reason why I did decide to go full-time voiceover was because I had to go on disability. I could no longer type. At Creativity, my beloved company that I told you about,
Yeah.
I could not continue. My arm did not work. It would freeze after about 15 minutes. It stopped working, and there was this just degenerative process that happened after the accident, where I was like 86 pounds. My hair was falling out. I could barely walk. I had severe plantar fasciitis. I developed scoliosis. I didn't know that I had dislocated my fibula. I had torn my
Mm.
rotator cuff in my shoulder, and what I didn't know is that I had like misaligned a bunch of my vertebrae in my neck, my C1, my C2, my C5, and C6.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I had MRIs, and what I didn't know is that there's a certain amount of deviation that they will allow for, because basically the surgery is expensive. It's dangerous. You can be paralyzed,
Yeah.
especially C1. And then also you like can't turn your head,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the one your head sits on. So they basically told me I was okay, and I was like, I am not okay. And I had therapists at that point, that had worked on my shoulder, and they were like, it's not your shoulder, the rest of it's in your neck, it's in your brachial plexus or from the nerves. And so I was having all of these issues with my, again, developing scoliosis and nerve damage to the rest of my body from what had been misaligned and distorted. And so it became this downward thing where, again, I was like, I'm gonna die. Like I was like, I don't have much longer. I really didn't. I was so ill. And I worked with a nutritionist at one point. I also didn't know until years later that I have Graves' disease, an autoimmune disease. And it's, triggered by stress as well. And so after the accident, I was in so much pain. I didn't know what was going on, and it triggered my Graves as well. And so that's also why my hair started falling out. I started losing weight. I could not, I literally had to work with a nutritionist, and I had to eat 5,000 calories a day
Wow.
in order to get back to 100 pounds. She put me on like 4,000, didn't do anything. 5,000 calories a day to gain, the weight back, to get just to 100. And I'm 5'1", 5'2", but yeah, it was like 86 pounds. And so I had to eat so much food. And it's very interesting. There's a lot of studies that talk about that I've now gone into, done really in-depth work, that people who have CPTSD and trauma, they're tied to all kinds of health conditions,
Yeah.
which I did not know until I started really getting into my therapy later in life. And so autoimmune issues, anxiety, GI issues, heart stuff. There's all kinds of things tied to when you are under chronic stress as a child for year after year after year. And my parents are wonderful people. They none of this was like, and that's why I've never really talked about it in an interview, because I never wanted anyone to think poorly of my parents or how
No,
I
not at
was
all.
raised, and it was not, they unfortunately just had a very unhappy marriage, and it was not, it was a very unhealthy situation. And again, I won't go more into that, but again, they did their best. They were young, and there were, it's what it was. And I've had my healing and with them, and we've done our therapy and to grow. But again,
Yeah.
we all do our best as parents. I'm a parent now too, and it's like it's hard. Like it is hard. We do our best in this life, but so all of these health issues that I didn't know, where they came from or what. And I didn't have a lot of medical care growing up either, because my mother is a religion called Christian Science, and they don't believe in medicine.
Okay.
So I was raised in a religion with no medicine.
Wow.
And so, in Christian Science, if you get hurt, you pray. And they believe that you will be healed like Jesus healed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the religion I was raised in. And I, like I have memories of like I had pneumonia at one point, and we didn't go to the doctor. I like literally couldn't breathe.
Mm.
And there's eventually my dad was like, no, we're going. I'm taking her to the hospital. I don't care. And I remember them giving me one shot, and suddenly I could breathe. And I was just holding my dad, just sobbing, like in his arms. And I was like, oh my God, medicine is amazing.
Yes.
So, this is stuff I've never talked about in an interview, but, it's been a huge part of my kind of healing process in becoming a parent and, resolving some of these health issues that I've dealt with. So it was like, not only did I have this spinal injury from the snowboarding accident, I had all these other health issues that I've had to kind of unwind over the last, a decade, uh, along with healing from all this other stuff. So it's like, that has been so hard to deal with and like try to work at the same time and try to be a mom and try to, um, to cope with all that. But yeah, with the spinal injury, when we finally found the doctors that were able to fix me, my spine had distorted so much that we had to unwind it. It was a
Yeah.
specialist, like, and it took quite a while. And during that process, I was in a wheelchair. I was in a wheelchair for about a year and a half. I could not I could not use my hands for a very long period of time, and I literally, like, I could not brush my teeth. Like, I could not comb my hair. Like, I had to cut all my hair off. My ex-husband, bless him, brushed my teeth. He'd feed me sometimes. Like, he was just phenomenal, and he'd wheel me around, and It was the worst time of my life. Absolutely. I learned I can open anything with my elbows to this day. Or my
Really?
feet. Oh yeah.
Huh.
You learn. You gotta open a jar,
Yeah.
like, how you gonna do it? So you put it down between your 2 feet, and then you, like, elbows against the thing, and, like, that's how you do it. So
That's
you
wow. Okay.
yeah, you figure it out, it's just, and again, there's people who've had much worse than that, but, that was a process that took a very long time, because I chose not to do surgery because there's all these risks associated with surgery, that, again, also in the neck area,
Yeah.
voice, which is the only thing I could still do. I couldn't hold down a desk job, but again, this to me, this was God too. Like, this was the universe. It was like, hey, you're all over the place. You're so scattered. You need to
Mhm.
do voiceover. But I'm so ADHD, I was doing dance, I was doing certified personal training, I was doing a little of this, a little of that, and I feel like, honestly, the universe was just like, "Girl,
You need to focus.
Imma make it so you can't do nothing else." And voiceover was my saving everything. I literally could not type, and my feet and my legs were so bad, I couldn't hold down even a job at, like, a Burger King or anything. I couldn't stand for long enough
Yeah.
to do it. So voiceover was my only option. It was like, I have got to make it. I have got to do this full time. That is the only thing I can do. And that's what I did. And I was like, well, I don't have any other option. And so I emptied my 401k from my beautiful company, God bless them. And I moved to LA. And I was like, here we go. And I just started with what was in the 401k. And amazingly, I started working for Mattel. I got my first LA agent. And then GVAA, I think, ended up being the biggest blessing to me because in the process of like wanting to do this for other people, we would hold these classes and coaching, and then I would get to watch them.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, and I learned a lot. And I was like, I learned a lot. And so I think that was my education too. I grew so much as a voice actor because of GVAA.
Yeah.
Because I got to I was like, oh, these are my classes. I get to watch them. So I can watch whatever I want.
There you go.
So I got unlimited voiceover education because I started this, which was I didn't think about at the time. That was not like but it was this wonderful byproduct. And I have like 100 something classes I still have to watch that we've held. And I'm like, man, I gotta
Wow.
watch that one. And it's like I love that I have this whole library of amazing coaches and resources that I still get to go and watch someday when I have some time. But yeah, so that I'm trying to remember. But yeah, so in terms of things being difficult. Yes, it was difficult, but it put me on the right path. It put me where I belonged, and it gave me a depth of experience in terms of emotion, of knowing how to work at something hard, in terms of emotional range
Yeah.
of pain to joy. Because that joy, when I could wash the dishes for the first time when I couldn't use my hands, I was
Yeah.
like, "I washed the dishes! Yeah!" It was so exciting because it was like, when you can't do anything and you suddenly can do this really basic thing, like, people take this for granted, just these basic
Yeah.
we're so fortunate to be able to just take a walk.
Yes.
It's such
You
a gift.
you appreciate it more.
And I got a tattoo actually of it, and it's right here, I don't know if you can see it, but, it says enamorada de la vida, and that means in love with life, because that's how I felt after when it started to heal. Because I was like, this is my second chance. You know,
Absolutely.
I had this really hard time growing up. I had all this stuff. I was an angry teenager about all of it for sure. I was like, I did all my wild and crazy partying. I was angry, just all this stuff. And it was like,
Yeah.
Christina, you are meant to do more. You can be more. And it's time to grow. And it's time to really, go and look at your pain, heal it, resolve it, and now go do something with all that. And so I feel like I got this amazing life experience of things that were incredibly painful, but then also all of this joy, and then knowing what that process looks like to be something so different, and then just choose to become something else. Because you wake up every day and it's a choice.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. And that, like you said at the beginning of this, tenacity, perseverance, It's every day you wake up and you choose, I'm going to get better today. I'm going to walk that 2 minutes further. I'm going to figure out that thing, whatever it is. You just wake up and you keep doing it and you keep doing it and you keep doing it until suddenly I didn't even recognize who I was anymore. And sometimes I think about like the people who knew me like when I was younger, and like if they're just like, dang, like she changed a lot. And I chose to.
Absolutely.
I made a choice, and I wanted to be more. I knew I had so much more to give. And so as an actor, when I do career strategy with people, I'm like, no, whatever you have in your past, it is not it is not a bad thing. Whatever it is, it's something that is going to add to your artistic expression. It's
Mhm.
something that you can speak to truthfully that other people cannot, and I can't tell you how many characters I've booked where I'm like, hey, one of my first big characters had anxiety. Why? Because I have anxiety. But one of my first characters is very ADHD. I have ADHD. It's fine. Like take that thing that like the world tells you is not good and make it into something else, because you know what? It's beautiful. There's something part of it, and it's true. There are other people with anxiety. There are other people with ADHD. There's other people who are going to relate to those characters, or being in whatever, or even if like mourning a death or whatever that experience is.
Yeah.
I could not voice a parent until I became a parent. Yeah,
How
this is
about
the
that?
no, it's true. There's a truth in the acting, and so that is like I think as an actor, whatever your life experience is, it is what you choose to do with it. It is what you choose to learn. It is how you choose to grow,
Yeah.
and all of that. Yeah, it can be hard, but all it does is make you so much more, and it gives you so much more to offer, and it gives you perspective in life where this is not that big of a deal. Like this, there's so many beautiful things and could all be gone tomorrow.
No.
We have to appreciate now and really live that, and try to be as good a human beings to others as we can, and bring joy to this world and healing and safety in whatever capacity we can to each other, because life is hard enough.
You better believe it. One of my favorite football players, who plays for the Raiders, his name is
Mm.
Max Crosby.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things he always says is just give 1% more than you did the day before.
Yeah.
1% more every day. You'll be surprised what you can do with just 1%. You don't have to give 100% all the time. If you just give 1%, and then the next day another 1%, you'll eventually get to 100% of something. You don't have to stress out trying to do 100% of something at one time if you just do the 1%.
Yeah.
So I thank you for being transparent with us, and really sharing that experience, because I think sometimes when folks see the successes, there's, oh man, she's got it made or he's got it made. But what you don't know is there are a whole bunch of steps that led up to that. Yeah, it's a good life now, but there's always that area where things were not as great. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to talk about. Um, and again, I thank you for that, because I think people need to see and understand that we're just like everybody else. We're human. What's the old term? It says, "Prick us, do we not bleed?" Yeah, I hurt just like you hurt. If there's something that's gonna cause an emotion out of you, and you're gonna cry, I cry. Man, I probably cried 3 times a week. Seriously, like, man, your big ass cry. Yes, I will
Let it out.
boo the hell who and don't care. Um, it is what it is, and you know, from then to now in this business, for me, I have been in instances where I've had the highs of highs, where everybody loves you, and then you have those lows where it's like, no one has called. I don't have an email. There's no text. Like, what the hell? And there's only been 2 days. But within those 2 days, your anxiety will like, hey, so no one's calling you, huh? You're not as special as you thought you were, Mr. Promo guy. And then, 2 days later, you get like 4 jobs. It's like, okay, they still love me.
Yeah.
So yeah, the anxiety roller coaster is real.
Yeah.
So that's right. You heard what she said.
She said, "Amen."
Preach on. Got a friend for you, Smokey. So as we wrap up, she's like, "Oh, you're wrapping up, huh?" Yeah. My favorite segment of the show is where we ask you, dear Christina, when the cameras and the mics are off, there's no more sessions. What does Cristina Milizia do to take time out for herself?
Oh, I dance. I dance. I danced all growing up, and I did actually dance professionally. I was invited to join a company when I was 15, and I did that when I was 15 or 16. I taught salsa and all kinds of things, Latin dance, and had an apprenticeship with a modern jazz company. And my first injury was when I was 17. I got a stress fracture in my spine.
Mm.
And then, that healed up, took a couple of years, and then I had my snowboarding accident. And that was the universe telling me, that's not for you, not for a job. And it broke my heart. But it took me where I needed to go. And what I discovered was that I love dance with my whole heart, but I dance for me. And that's the difference. When
There
I
you go.
voice, it's for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. Tell me what you want me to say. I'll say it. I don't care. Because it is a service, and in this, it is for you. It is for the fans. It is for the people who this is their project. This is their love. They've been writing this show for 10 years. This is it is for representation. So for that little girl who's Hispanic who gets to see, or whatever, that is when I voice. It is for them.
Yeah.
It is for them. But dance was for me. And I don't like to dance. I don't like people telling me what to do when I dance. Like, I'm more just like, again, so that it was such the universe. It was like, no, this is a hobby. This is something that you love. And it's something that's always going to be an emotional outlet, mean something to you. But that's not where your job is.
Yeah.
That's not your service to the world. And so voiceover, I have no ownership of it. It doesn't matter to me. If my job is to make other people's dreams, to make them happy, where they get the product that it felt just right, that they got everything that they wanted, that it felt magical to them, whatever, then I go home and I go to sleep and I'm like, oh, awesome. I got to be part of their dream and make it into a reality. But no, to this day, I continue to rehab. I still have some stuff that's like not right. I've got my Pilates machine upstairs. I'm still kind of retraining my leg and there's stuff. But so when everything is done and I have a little extra time, I go and dance. And I started, I think probably about a year ago, I started making little social media videos of me dancing. And you know what? They're not good. They're not good, but it doesn't matter because I don't care anymore. I'm like, you know what? By the way, y'all, I love to dance. And if you're here, I'm going to dance.
Hey, they say dance like nobody's watching.
And that's what I do now. And I put on social media because I don't care, because I think it's written all over my face how happy it makes me.
Listen, I got the moves of a polar bear, but that does not stop me from getting a little juke on every now and then.
Yeah, joy is
You have to.
Yeah.
We all need an outlet that just, you just want to turn the world off for a second and have that thing that you love that you want to do, and you don't care. Like for this 15, 20 minutes, it's just me and my world doing what I do.
Yeah.
So keep dancing, sister. How can the folks reach out and see what you're doing and see those lovely dance videos that you're doing? Drop them
Just know,
socials.
I need to put dancer with a spinal injury. I know this isn't good, but I don't care. But no, it's not terrible. Like I know I'm a decent dancer, obviously, but there are things I can't do. Like you'll notice I never tilt my head in a video, and that's because of my neck injury. You'll never see me do a big layout. It's not gonna happen. But no, I am on social media. I'm a dork. I post pictures of. I post stuff of my work, for sure, my stuff, but also my son and my dancing. So if you want to check me out, it's just Cristina Milizia. It's,
on pretty much everything. I don't know if they're gonna take away TikTok. I just started up TikTok, and now they're gonna take it
Oh
away. I'm like,
man.
all right, that's fine, whatever. I didn't get into very far to that in any way, but I'm mostly on Instagram. For GVAA, globalvoiceacademy.com. That's our website. I do coach, and I do demo production as well. I don't do a ton of it, just due to schedule. But yeah, I do animation demos and toy demos. We just began that as well. And so that's been really fun. And I get to flex that kind of, musical background a little bit and
Yeah.
play. But yeah, so and otherwise for voiceover work, just one of my agents or my manager is where I roll.
I might have to
So
hit you up with one of those toy demos, man. They might need a surly baritone to sing something, and I know a guy.
actually, they do, just so you know. I mean, are you joking right now? Are
I
you
am so serious, girl. Stop playing with me.
No, I'm serious. They need everything, and it's like there's kind of a vacuum right now where there's no formula for toy demos. It's not like, "Here's how you make this is the standard thing." Like, nobody's really
Yeah,
done that, and people kept referring me for toys, and I was like, I don't know if you really need a toy demo. And they're like, people are like, no, I want a toy demo because I want to market to directly to toy companies. I'm like, animation demo is fine. They're like, no, toy demo. And I was like, okay. And so I started really studying. Um, I started studying because again, I've worked for Leapfrog for 20 years. I worked for creativity
oh,
for a long
wow.
time. So it's like I have all these contacts. I've been working with a woman at Spin Master for 20 years now. So it's like I called him up and I was like, all right, someone sent you a demo, toy demo. What do you want to be on it? And they were like, "Well, actually," and then they're like, "Actually, that would be nice. Could you please get someone to put some concatenation on a demo? Because we really," and I was like, "Oh, sure." So I just, started writing down. So actually, I'm making we're about to produce our first one, but there's never been, a standard of, what goes on a toy demo.
Right.
But I interviewed, Spin Master, Leapfrog, Creativity, a whole bunch of people to figure out, "Hey, as a toy production company, what do you wanna hear on a demo?" And your voice absolutely has its category, and the
Oh
things that it needs.
my.
So, yeah, so I
We'll
am
be talking off camera.
yeah. It's fun. It's a fun world, and I have to say toys because I've been doing it again for the first time in a long time, because I took a break and just focused on animation. It's a fun world. It really is. It's silly. You get to be big, but it's a specific skill set,
Yeah.
and your enunciation needs to be on point. There's educational stuff. But it's also great training for animation. That's big character work. Singing, being if you're bilingual, it's a huge deal. There's all kinds of things that go into that. But it is really fun work, and there's tons of little apps and things like that too, where it goes into that world. And yeah, so
Oh, all right.
anyway.
Y'all better watch out. The next teddy bear you grab might sound like your boy. I'm just saying.
Hey, well, there's a ton of work. Some of my favorite work is I don't even know what to call it, but it's like seasonal toy work.
Hmm.
It's like the dancing Santa that sings a
Oh, okay.
song, or it's always like a cover. I did a little chick, I was like a little chicken and egg, and it was like, I'm coming out. I want the world to know. For it was for Easter,
Come on,
there's all that
man.
stuff. It's like I did one for again Easter. It was called the bunny hop, and it was like everybody hop now, and it was just all this. Yeah, it's a whole thing. I'm a bunny, and I'd like to hop eggs. I had my eggs all over the place. Hop to the rim, hop to the rim. Yeah, bitch that basket up. It was a whole thing. I can't remember the whole rap, but it's a whole area that's
That's
very fun.
You know what? Yeah, we definitely need to we'll be in discussion for sure.
Oh yeah. All right. If you
Well,
sing again, it's
kids,
a good thing.
yeah, for sure. I hope you learned something today. I hope you felt something today. Um, we've we've shared a lot, and I hope that you know, it touched you, it inspired you, um, made you laugh a little bit, maybe even shed a tear. Because we do all that here at the podcast. It's not just laughter and jokes. We want to hit you here. We want to hit you here. And I think we've done that today. Christina, thank you so much, love.
Thank you for having me. It was so nice to just get a chance to sit and talk with just you. And to everyone watching, thank you so much for listening to my story. And this was just such a joy. Thank you for everything.
Absolutely. Um, she is Cristina Milizia. Y'all know me. I'm just Trey. But thank you for tuning in. And now go take some time out for yourself. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the
Bye.
Take Time Out with Tre Mosley podcast, part of the Titan Media Network. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcast. To see the video version of this, you can find us on YouTube on the Take Time Out with Tre Mosley YouTube page. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching. Either way, we'll see you next time.